Hello, hello. Good morning.
Good.
Happy Monday.
Hello, everybody.
We-
All right.
yeah, super excited. Another Monday, another coffee chat. We were vacationing, I guess. Not really. There was a holiday in Canada last Monday, which I'm not in Canada, so I didn't get to celebrate. But we decided to take the day. So it's been 2 weeks since we've been here, but we're excited to be back. And today we're talking everything water. And it's funny because I was talking to somebody this morning, and they're like, "Why water? It seems like such a easy topic." And I'm like, because you will not understand how many people actually struggle, me included, with doing the water thing. I mean, it's crazy. Christina, you must hear it all the time as well.
Yeah, I would say water is probably one of our biggest things that we hear about that people are struggling with. And again, it is so simple, and everybody knows after surgery that they have to do it. I don't think there's a surgeon out there that doesn't recommend water, water, water. But then we do hear all the time that people really struggle with it for a variety of reasons, which we'll kind of chat about. But yeah, it is one of the bigger struggles that we hear about, and it's so important. You can go weeks technically without food, and your body will handle it. But within 3 days, your body starts shutting down without the proper amounts of water. Not even just like no water, but you actually have to have like reasonable amounts of water for your body to function properly.
Yeah.
It's important in everything you do. So even if you ate the cleanest diet in the entire world, which let's be honest, most of us don't, but if you did, it would be sort of useless if you didn't get the proper amount of water, because water is what distributes the nutrients throughout your body. So if you didn't have the right amount of water, but you ate this really clean diet, it would sort of almost be like you're eating little bits of junk all the time because your body's still not using your nutrients properly.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we're talking water 101, the who, what, when, where, why kind of thing. But again, if you guys are watching live, just let us know that, well, you can hear us, would be nice. Where you're from, what you're doing. And if you're watching the replay, give us a hashtag replay so we can keep up with any questions you have. And as always, guys, if you have any questions regarding what we talk about or anything else to do with water, or let's be honest, anything, just put it in the comments and we will get back to you as quickly as we can. All right, so let's get started. First of all, water as a whole. Why is it so important for us as human beings to drink it, Christina?
So there's a ton of reasons, really. Dehydration is a really, really big one. And so to avoid being dehydrated, which is really bad for your entire body, as I said before, your body needs water to move nutrients throughout it, so to actually optimize your health. Your body needs nutrients for your brain to fire properly, for the blood to pump in your body properly, like really, really essential pieces of your human nature, I guess. Need water. You also need water as part of like breath and breathing. It's really important. You need water for metabolism, is a big one in the weight loss world, that if you want to metabolize your food, which means push your food through, water is essential for that. So it is literally like in almost everything we do, we need water. And yeah, it's the most important kind of thing that your body consumes.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because not all water is created equal. And if you have, I've been talking about this for weeks now, but if you haven't seen the Netflix, what the heck's it called? Down to Living with Zac Efron, which don't get away from that. I do love Zac Efron, but the information itself is actually pretty interesting. They do a whole water taste testing kind of information, and we got inspired and did it ourselves here. So we got some bottled water, we got some expensive bottled water, we got some, purified bottled water and the whole thing. And so if you ever want to try it, it's actually really interesting because you would never think that water would really be that different, especially when you get it in a bottle at the store, or, your filter with your whatever those filters are called. But when we did our taste test, we couldn't believe the difference from the chemical taste to the aftertaste. And you're like, it's just water, but it's not. So keep that in mind. Not all water is created equal, depending on where you live, your tap water versus your bottled water, all of those things, because there is a lot of water out there that actually is marketed to us that actually pulls our nutrients away from us versus actually giving it back to us. So it's like, you're drinking the wrong water, but you're like, what? Water? How can that be wrong?
Interestingly enough, distilled water is actually not a great option for you, that you want spring water and not distilled for optimal health. The other thing that's interesting with water is the temperature of your water makes a difference too. So in a perfect world, you would actually drink your water, your body's going to use it the easiest if you drink it at room temperature. So if you have a hard time metabolizing water, so if you're one of those people who, I hear this from a lot of people, that plain water doesn't sit well after surgery, room temperature water will actually tend to sit better than super cold or super warm. But if you're looking to boost your metabolism using water, which water definitely helps to boost metabolism, super cold, like ice cold water, or hot, like tea, are actually the way to do. So you often will hear drinking like a glass of like lemon water first thing in the morning. If you drink it hot, it's actually better for metabolism. Or like I said, if you drink water with lots of ice cubes in it and stuff and drink it cold, it's actually better because your body uses the water at room temperature. So it either has to warm it or cool it to body/room temperature in order to use it. So that is something else that makes a big difference in your water consumption, is the temperature at which you drink it.
Yeah, and I love that because I like really cold or really hot water. I don't like room temperature water at all.
And I'm totally a room temperature girl. I will frequently like pour a cup of water or a glass of water and let it sit for 30 minutes before I touch it.
Oh no, we do bottled water here in Mexico, and so I will take one of those big bottles and like throw it in the fridge and make sure that it's cold before I even pour it in. Gets a bunch of ice cubes, and that is way. But that's actually a really good one, because one of the things we hear a lot of is, I'm so bored with just water, whether it's room temperature or cold, whoever you're talking to. Let's talk a little bit of ways about sprucing it up. And it's funny, we were just talking about this here. I don't know if you can see it. So I actually created, these are infused water ice cubes. I don't know how well you can see them because they're starting to melt, but this is a raspberry thyme cinnamon ice cube. And actually what I did is I created it, built it in like the magic bullet, put it in the ice cubes, and then froze them. And then once I was ready to go, I put them in my glass and just added regular water. So now, if you're not a big fan of, things in your water, this might not be the best way, but infused water is a really great way to have a flavor without having some of the calories and on some of the crap that usually comes in. Yeah, like the chemical things. Christina's going to talk a little bit more about those squirty things. We don't have squirty things here in Mexico, but this is the best I can find here. It's stevia flavored pomegranate. And again, it's quite delicious. But with the stevia, it's also not nearly as sweet. So for me, it's not too bad. I do find some of those like squirty ones to be extremely sweet. But it's finding things like that. So Christina, what are some of the other things that we can do to really kind of include more water in our regular everyday, that's kind of just things we can find, like water bottles and that kind of thing?
Yeah. So again, the infused water is awesome. Infusing the ice cubes, if you are somebody that drinks your water super cold, that's a fantastic idea. You can also buy all kinds of different water infusing like bottles or whatever, so that if you don't like something hitting your mouth when you're drinking, like the little like seeds or whatever, those bottles will help to keep that away, because they usually filter that part so it doesn't actually come up to your mouth, but it puts the flavor into it. So you can use cucumber, you can use lemon, you can use, I will often take the core of a pineapple and infuse water with the core of a pineapple so that you're not wasting anything. Citrus is really good. I find if you use frozen berries, it works better than fresh berries. Typically that they just leach more flavor. Cranberries, same thing. Frozen is better, I find, than fresh. So all kinds of different flavors in terms of infusing. Then you can also use cold or hot. Decaffeinated teas are another really great way to get your water in. So caffeinated tea only counts as 50% water, so it's still better than coffee, which we'll talk about in a second, because not all liquids are created equally, but decaffeinated teas are 100% water. So you can use herbal ones, you can use fruit-flavored teas, there's all kinds of different teas that you can use. Again, unsweetened ideally, but if you are going to sweeten anything, use stevia is going to be your better option, or something like a monk fruit sweetener, where they're a more natural sweetener. But perfectly ideal is just drinking the tea straight up. So I will use a lot of the David's teas, that are just like fruity flavored teas. They have one, Caribbean Crush is one of my favorites. And I just make it and use hot water to make it, put it in the fridge and drink it just totally cold. And it's really, really good on its own. Other things that you can do that I find to be really helpful, changing your water bottle. So if you're finding that you're having a hard time drinking water, drinking it out of something different makes a difference. So like Lindsay has that one that she usually uses, but as you saw, she's drinking out of a wine glass right now to spruce it up and make it seem more fun. which is another really helpful thing if you're out with other people who are drinking other beverages, that to drink out of something that you don't usually drink out of, so it makes it sort of fancy. So drinking water out of a margarita glass, or drinking water out of a wine glass, or drinking water out of like a nice cold like freezer beer mug, if that's what you're into. But drinking it out of something different will make you feel like you're like sort of fitting in a little bit more. It makes your water feel more exciting. So switching those up all the time, straw versus no straw versus big spout, little spout, all of those things, glass versus plastic, there's versus now they have like the metal water bottles, whatever you prefer to drink out of. And then if you're finding that you're not drinking enough water, I find often just switching up that water bottle makes a big difference. If you're at all vain, which let's be honest, we're all a little bit vain somehow, but having a pretty water bottle or a funky water bottle or something that really suits your personality with a quote on it or your favorite color or whatever, those things seem to make a difference for people. Again, it's all just like mental, but it really does make a difference. If you have something that you enjoy, carrying with you and it sort of fits your personality, you tend to use it more. Anything
yeah, absolutely. No, I was just going to say, I mean, like, so obviously I get often asked, so are you drinking wine at 10 o'clock in the morning? Well, no, I'm not. I actually don't like wine, so I don't drink it very often, but it just makes me drink more. I want to hold it in my hand. I want to drink more. I want to be a part of it. So it's just finding things like that. And again, changing it up. And I mean, again, I don't love having a ton of water bottles or a ton of glasses. We're very minimal, but if you find yourself really lacking in that water, really evaluate. As we always say, assess what's going on, because if it is that your water bottle is just not getting you excited anymore, if it is the glass or whatever, that's when it's time to change it up, because that is really going to make a difference. The moment you get it, like I got this one, probably brand new. I had one similar to this. I was kind of getting a little bored with it, 4 weeks ago. And ever since, it's literally never away from my side, because it's there for me all the time. Another one that I really like, going on to the herbal tea side of things, I'm not a huge herbal tea fan, but I do enjoy them, is cacao powder in water. Again, it is very, very healthy for you. It's one of the superfoods, if you classify it as that. And it just kind of gives you that more chocolatey flavor of water, which, they have some really delicious, not decaf chocolate kind of flavored ones. So it's just things like that you can find that are going to help with the water drinking. We are going to post a few recipes, some of our favorite infused water recipes in the group. We're also going to post some really great information about why water is so important, which obviously we've talked a little bit about today, but it's a bit of a cheat sheet. So if you are struggling, because we do hear a lot about how it's hard to get your water in. And we always joke, and I love the meme that's out there, it's hard to get your water in, but I can drink, 6 glasses of wine or beer or whatever, right? And it's so much harder to do water, and we know that, we understand that. And so even further out from surgery, back when you were beginners, and it was kind of like, how do I eat and drink and do all of these things all at once? And again, if you are looking for something, we have a really good water, eat, food kind of, timeline to help you with that. But drinking water is a big one. Now, Christina, you're 4.5 years out. You still don't drink while you eat. And that is something that we hear a lot of people say, well, I do that now, or I don't do that now. So it really, I know they recommend not to do it, but it is kind of at this point, 4.5 years out, it's a little bit more of what you prefer, because you can't do it.
No, so I can drink right up until I eat, but then I need to wait at least 30 minutes after eating to drink again, or else I just get too full and I feel like it comes back up on me. And same with if I'm eating a meal. If I'm having something really, really dry, I can have a sip or two of water. I've actually heard a quarter of a cup to half of a cup of water at a meal is considered acceptable by a lot of like the top bariatric surgeons. So that if you are somebody who really needs that little bit of liquid to help get your food down, that's allowed, as long as, again, it feels comfortable for you. For me personally, no water feels good while I'm eating. It sits like right here, and it doesn't go down until the food's gone. It's like the food just stops it. I don't know exactly how it works, but it doesn't feel good at all. And so yeah, I can definitely still drink up until I eat, and I metabolize water fast enough that I seem to, by the time I start eating and the food gets down, the water's gone and it's moved through. But afterwards, I definitely still have to eat. Now, at least up until that 12-month mark, they recommend to be very strict about not drinking up until you eat, and giving the 30 minutes before and after. And the reason for that is that you'll be full on water, and then you won't end up getting enough calories in. So that's a big reason. So you want to make sure that you're giving yourself that space between eating and drinking, which can really feel like a juggling act in that first year or so. I remember, like, trying to eat, trying to drink, trying to get everything done all in one day. It seemed overwhelming sometimes. So that schedule that Lindsay mentioned, if you guys don't have a copy of it, reach out and we'll send you one. And it was really helpful for me to just kind of think about, okay, and I set alarms and did all of those things. Now my body does a lot of that naturally, but over time it definitely was something that I had to learn to do, because I never thought about that before. Like, the average person who hasn't had surgery doesn't think about eating and drinking at the same time. In fact, a lot of the time in the diet world, they recommend you drink, 8 ounces of water right before a meal so that you fill up a little bit, so you don't eat as much, and all of those things. Well, in the surgery world, it's just a little bit different. I did want to talk about things that aren't water. So when we talk about water, we talk about the clear liquid is the best option. So just straight up water is the absolute best option. As we mentioned, spring water tends to be what they recommend most. Your temperature can vary. It really doesn't matter. But that is the only thing that is actually considered water. Everything else there's things that are allowable, like the infused stuff, like tea, that the squirty things to an extent as well, are all allowed in small quantities, but you want to make sure that you're still drinking some plain water as often as you can. Again, I know that a lot of you suffer with reflux from plain water. I actually struggle in the evenings if I drink plain water after dinner, and then when I go to bed I get really bad reflux, only if I drink plain water after dinner. So I save my tea for after dinner, or if I ever do use those squirty things, which I'll talk about in a second, I save those for then. So during the day, it's all just plain water. But then as the day goes on, I find that if I don't add something to it, and what it does is by adding something to your water, whether it's infusion or using tea or using the squirty things, it actually changes the pH balance of your water and tends to make it so that you don't get reflux from it. It holds it down better. It's, just an interesting thing that happens after surgery for a lot of us, and I never fully understood it until it started happening to me. I used to think you guys were all just BSing me, and we're like, I just don't want to drink plain water. Well, no, it is a real thing. Turns out I was wrong. But so those squirty things, if you're going to use them, like your Crystal Lights and stuff, as Lindsay said, using something that's stevia sweetened or monk fruit sweetened or naturally sweetened, but be careful with that naturally sweetened thing, because sometimes they will just use that as a gimmick. But something that's more naturally sweetened is going to be a much better option than using things that are full of like sucralose or aspartame or any of those like fake ingredients, basically. So just because it's 0 calorie doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy. Anything to add on that?
Again, really look at the ingredients on those, because there are some, like, we know that, people love their soda, pop, or whatever you want to call it, wherever you're from, and then they all excited when they find, the cream soda flavor and the orange crush flavor. But if you look at some of those ingredients, you're going to find that they're just filled with so many terrible ingredients, so much chemicals, that again, you are taking away from the water. Just like the quality of the water, you're taking it away. So you are drinking it, yes, but as Christina said, one of the biggest things that you can do is have 1 glass of regular water and then have one of those if you really want to, or save it for when you're struggling to have water. Or, if first thing in the morning you feel like you can drink water like a beast, then drink water plain and then build into in the afternoon, in the evenings, or whenever you find that is. That's the biggest thing. It's the same with the teas, right? So some of the teas, David's tea is not terrible. Some of the other teas are terrible, but some of them are very bad. So again, just take a look at the chemicals, right? See what's in there, see what the ingredients are. If you have no idea how to pronounce half the stuff in the ingredient, which seems crazy because it's a tea, but it still has to be made by something. So just be careful of the type of tea that you're getting so that you're finding the most natural, obviously if you can go organic, great. If not, just looking for good quality ingredients. And then that's why the infused water is great, because you are in control of the ingredients, right? I made my ice cubes. I put the raspberries, I put the thyme in, I know what they are. Where if you're getting, the squirties or whatever they are, or even, I know they have infused waters out there, like the vitamin water. Let's talk about that for a bit. Like,
okay.
Those.
That was the next place I was going to go. So I hate the vitamin waters, the G2s, all of those. I do not like any of those. Most of them are loaded with sugar alcohols. And sugar alcohols are something that basically makes things 0 calories in the most processed, awful way possible. And your body often doesn't digest them very well. A lot of bariatric patients will dump from sugar alcohols. And it is suggested to keep your sugar alcohols as low as possible, which to me on an average day is 0. Occasionally a sugar alcohol slips into my body and I actually feel it. I get headaches from sugar alcohols really bad. So just because they're not normal things, like your body doesn't know how to process them. So try to stay away from those. Again, if you're using them on occasion, if you're like on a road trip and you stop at the gas station, grab vitamin water, not the end of the world. But to buy like cases of vitamin water or G2 or whatever on a regular basis, I would definitely try to avoid that. Dilute them with water the best you can so that you're, maybe you're drinking half of a vitamin. If you're drinking them right now and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to get off of this stuff, then start diluting it and breaking it down that way. And then, slowly, because sugar alcohols you will withdraw from the same as caffeine or whatever, that your body will definitely go into withdrawal from that. So it's just kind of a yucky chemical shitstorm, really.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. And it's the same with any of the water infused. Like I mean, again, with like sparkling water, they do, like cherries, sparkle, natural flavors. And you look at what that actually looks like. They have beautiful cherries on the front of the
There's no cherries in that water.
There's no cherries in that water. So you know what? It's better if you love that. I mean, again, bubbles I know are some people can do them, some people can, not. But if that's something that you really love, get some sparkling water plain and then add your own in, which is why the infusion yourself and the recipes that we're going to share with you guys are so much better than some of the other ones. And it takes seconds to throw some of that stuff in. It's not the end of the world. But it is a much better option. But as Christina said, if you're out and you need to get something and it's a one-off, it's no big deal. But if you're buying cases and cases of this stuff, that's where you want to kind of look at what your other options are, because that much chemical is going to take away from the benefit of the water.
The very last thing that I wanted to chat a little bit about is coffee. So coffee, though a liquid, and though often a calorie-free liquid, if you're not putting anything in it, it's still not water. So generally speaking, aside from coffee, anything that's calorie-free can be considered water in most surgical centers, except coffee. And the biggest reason is the caffeine. So anything that has caffeine in it is often not considered water. If it's a more natural source caffeine, like green tea, then they will allow it to count as partial water, as I said before, 50%. So if you have an 8-ounce glass of green tea, then you're going to be able to count 4 ounces of water and then 4 ounces of not water. So, but coffee, the caffeine in coffee does not allow it to be counted as water at all. Coffee is actually dehydrating to your body and not hydrating. So I love coffee. Coffee is currently not loving me, which I posted about this morning with very sad. But I drink 1 cup of coffee a day, and that cup of coffee actually takes away from my water. So not only does it not count for my water, generally speaking, I have a 12-ounce cup of coffee every day, and it takes 12 ounces off of my water. So I actually tend to, unless I teach first thing in the morning, a fitness class, but other than that, I drink coffee before I drink any water. So I actually start my day in a water deficit almost every day. So I'm like, oh, look, I'm negative 12 ounces of water right now. And then I have to go, whatever my goal is, which I'll talk about. Hold on 1 second, sweetie. Sorry. Generally speaking, I will start my day in that deficit, and then getting to my water goal makes it's that much harder based on, that coffee every single day. So
it's sad. People really love to count their coffee as their water, and of course, it doesn't happen that way. If anything, you can start your day with a glass of cold, hot, whatever. I usually do like a ginger and lemon tea in the morning, and I say ginger and lemon tea because it's literally hot water with ginger and lemon in it. It's fresh, but it allows me to kind of get that in. And then I don't drink coffee, I don't like it, but then I'll have like a regular English breakfast, black caffeinated tea, and enjoy that immensely. But it all adds up, and when you add the coffee into it, that actually subtracts the number, which is really, really sad. And again, most of you guys probably already know this, but the amount of water that you require is not going to be the same as the amount of water Christina requires or I require, because it's all based on your body weight. It's also based on, there's a lot of research that can go into it. If you really wanted to know if you're big into running or something like that, it's based on your sweat rate and all of that stuff. But when you're thirsty, you're often already dehydrated. So keep that in mind, right? So if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so thirsty. Like some mornings you wake up and you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm so thirsty. That's because you haven't drank water for, well, if you're lucky, 8 hours. For me, more like 2. But you've been sleeping the whole time and you haven't been drinking the water. So just remember that's a clear indicator that you are already dehydrated. So you want to get water in as quickly as possible.
And our bodies are really good at adapting, which is often good, but in this case, I'm going to say it's kind of bad. So if you ignore your body's thirst signal for, a long time, like if you're just not someone who drinks a lot of water because you just ignore it, well, you probably actually don't even feel thirst anymore. That's a really normal thing. But your body just stops giving you cues because it's like, she's going to ignore me anyways, so I'm just not going to bother with this. So you have to get that signal back. And often what happens is your body will send you a thirst signal and you mistake it for a hunger signal and you eat instead. Now, you do get small amounts of water out of food. So your body is getting its basic needs met through there, but you have many, many more needs to fulfill in that. So if you're somebody who's sitting here going, but I never get thirsty, like I just don't ever, well, that's not a good thing. It just means that you've ignored your body for long enough that it just gave up. So starting with small amounts of water. Now, personally, I find starting with a small water bottle is better because it gives you that feeling of accomplishment. So if you start with, say, a 4-ounce bottle of water, like just a tiny little bottle or glass, and then you consume that whole 4-ounce glass, and then 2 hours later, you consume another 4-ounce glass, and you go all day long doing that, you're going to feel accomplished at the end of the day because you drank all of those 4-ounce glasses. And there's a million different ways that we can tell you how to drink more water and all of that. This could go on and on and on. But I find personally, if I drink one of those, like Lindsay's is like 80 ounces per bottle or something like that, if I tried to fill that, I would feel like this impending doom all day long. Like, I'm never going to get through this. And even though I easily drink 80 ounces of water in a day, but I just feel like I like a smaller bottle. I tend to go with a 20-ounce bottle, feels really good for me. And I try to drink one between every meal or snack. So that means I'm drinking between 100-ish to 120 ounces a day. But I know other people prefer the bigger bottle, but they don't have to fill as often. So finding, again, what feels right for you. And if you're feeling that impending doom by that big giant bottle, or if you're feeling annoyed by filling up a small bottle all day long, well, that gives you some cues of what's working and what's not. Now, we do have a workshop coming up really soon that is going to touch on some of these kind of things. It's called Eat This, Not That. So it's going to talk about, again, replacing things like your sugar in some of your things with different alternatives. It's going to talk about replacing your flour. So if you're making a recipe that calls for coconut flour and you don't have any, what can you replace it with? If you're somebody who's trying to avoid eating regular flour, like wheat flour, how can you replace that with something else in a recipe and make it taste good? If you're somebody who's searching Pinterest for hours and you're finding all of these keto recipes, but you don't want to eat that high of fat, how can you lighten that recipe up? How can you make all of these different changes and still make them fit in your life? So that's coming up on the 13th. Is that? Yes, which is this Thursday, right?
Yeah,
wow.
It is. Wow.
Soon. Wow.
So close.
So yeah, we still have spaces available for Eat This, Not That. If you want to come join us, it will be recorded as well. So if you're not able to join it live, you will still get the recorded information as well as workbooks and stuff like that in there. So that is just something else that's going on this week, that if you're looking for some healthy options and you're not quite sure what to do, then that might be a good one for you.
Yeah, and it really is just giving you lots of different ways of how do you change things up? How do you do it this way? We do hear that a lot, right? How do I fit this into my life? How do I take that recipe and change it? During our group meal prep in our Your Bariatric Transformation Academy, we often talk about, I want to make this, but I don't have it. What should I make instead? What can I do? Or I have chicken and what should I do with it? And so we get that often. And so we wanted to bring something to you that would really give you the opportunity to take a look at all the different options. And as well as we are opening it up to questions for you guys for personalized suggestions. So if you're like, here's my old family recipe and it's got 17 cups of sugar in it, how can I make it better? And we're going to open it up to questions so you can get questions like that helped and answered as well. So it's going to be awesome.
We're talking a little bit about food intolerance, which is something that I struggle with. So it will be another piece that I will add in there, is that if your body's suddenly not agreeing with something, how can you take that out of your diet? Dairy is something that I've taken out of my diet. As I said earlier, coffee is now something that's coming out of my diet, sadly, that my body just doesn't want to process those things anymore. So I have personal experience as well as the professional knowledge of how to start eliminating those things to avoid the withdrawals and all of that, and to make better informed decisions. Again, with dairy or with meat or any of those kind of things, if you take them out, there's a lot of really crappy alternatives out there. So how to avoid those in your diet and not just replace one thing that's not agreeing with your body with something else that might not agree with your body. So really paying attention to those signals and cues.
Awesome. I'm excited. It's going to be amazing. If you want to join us, the link is in the comments, and definitely keep an eye out for some more posts to let you know. You can always join us on Thursday. Guys, have a fantastic week. As always, on Thursday, there will be an email going out, and on Saturday, it will go up on our blog. We each write from our own perspective, something a little bit about what we talked about today and kind of focus on that. So keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, have yourself a fantastic week. Keep drinking that water. Enjoy it however you like it, and we'll talk to you guys real soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.